Ethan Parker was not the kind of man who expected drama in his life. He lived quietly outside Chicago, spending most days designing homes and most nights alone in a small apartment that always felt too big. His life was simple, predictable, and safe, and he liked it that way. He did not chase excitement, and excitement had never chased him either. That changed on a rainy Thursday evening when his phone rang while he was fixing dinner. The caller ID showed Aunt Rebecca. He answered without thinking much, but the tone in her voice made him pause immediately. She sounded tense, almost fragile, like she had been holding something in for a long time. She did not waste time. She told him she needed help, and that she and Aunt Linda were going to Vermont for something important. Ethan asked what kind of help, expecting something simple like driving or fixing a problem with a house. But then she mentioned Daniel Carter, and everything in her voice shifted. Daniel was Rebecca's husband, a man Ethan had met many times at family events. He was charming in public, always polite, always smiling, but Ethan never fully trusted him. There was something too controlled about Daniel, like he always measured every word before speaking it. Rebecca finally said it. She believed Daniel was seeing someone else. The words hit Ethan harder than expected. Rebecca had been married to Daniel for over 20 years. From the outside, they looked like a perfect couple. Nice house, expensive vacations, social events where they always appeared happy. But now that picture was cracking. Linda took the phone at some point and calmly asked Ethan to come with them. She said they needed someone they could trust, someone neutral. Ethan did not hesitate long. Even though he felt uneasy, he agreed. Family always pulled him into things he did not fully understand. 2 days later, he met them for the drive. It was early morning, and the sky was gray with heavy clouds. Rebecca looked tired even before the trip began. Linda tried to stay positive, but Ethan could see tension behind her calm face. Something was already wrong in this family long before the journey started. They drove out of the city and onto long open roads. The rain started slowly, then grew stronger as hours passed. Inside the car, conversation came in short pieces. Rebecca stayed mostly silent, staring out the window like she was replaying memories. Linda tried to talk about small things, but her voice never fully relaxed. Ethan kept driving and listening. He noticed something unusual between the sisters. They were close, but there was distance too. Like something unsaid had been sitting between them for a long time. Every time Rebecca sighed, Linda looked at her, then quickly looked away. As night approached, they stopped at a small roadside inn in Vermont. The place was old but warm, with wooden floors and dim lights. Only 2 rooms were available. Rebecca insisted on taking one alone. She said she needed space. Her voice was firm but tired. That left Ethan and Linda sharing the second room. It was not ideal, but no one complained. They were all too drained to argue. The room had 2 beds, a small table, and a window facing the rain. Everything felt quiet, almost too quiet. Later that night, after hours of silence, Ethan sat near the window while Linda rested on the edge of her bed. She held a glass of wine she barely drank. The storm outside grew stronger, tapping against the glass like it had something to say. Linda suddenly spoke in a soft voice. She said people often spend their lives loving others who never truly choose them. Ethan looked at her, surprised by the honesty in her tone. She was usually the stronger one in family gatherings, always smiling, always composed. But now she looked different, more vulnerable. Ethan did not know how to respond. He kept his answers simple, careful. Linda smiled slightly, but it did not reach her eyes. There was sadness there, deep and quiet, like she had carried it for years without telling anyone. The room felt smaller as time passed. Not because of space, but because of everything left unsaid. Ethan noticed Linda watching him when she thought he was not looking. There was something in her expression that made him uneasy, not fear, but emotional tension he could not define. Before sleep came, Linda mentioned something strange. She said Rebecca never told Ethan everything about Daniel. Her voice lowered as she spoke, like she was afraid of the words themselves. Ethan turned toward her slowly, sensing the shift in atmosphere. He asked what she meant, but Linda did not answer directly. Instead, she looked down at her hands and stayed quiet for a long time. The silence grew heavy again. Ethan felt it then, that whatever truth was waiting in Vermont, it was not just about betrayal, it was about something deeper that could break the family apart. Outside, the rain continued falling hard against the windows. Inside the room, neither of them slept easily. Ethan lay awake thinking about Rebecca, about Daniel, and about the strange sadness in Linda's eyes. Something was coming, something none of them were prepared for, and this quiet night in Vermont was only the beginning. The next morning felt different the moment Ethan opened his eyes. The storm had passed, but the air still felt heavy, like something unresolved was waiting ahead. Linda was already awake, sitting near the window, staring outside without moving. She looked tired, not from lack of sleep, but from thoughts she could not escape. Rebecca was quiet during breakfast. She barely touched her coffee. Her hands shook slightly as she held the cup, and she kept avoiding eye contact. Ethan noticed it immediately. Something had changed overnight. The journey they thought would be simple was already turning into something far more painful. They left the inn and continued driving toward Daniel Carter's lake house. The roads grew narrower, surrounded by tall trees and cold mist. The silence in the car felt different now. It was not calm anymore. It felt like pressure building before a storm breaks. When they finally arrived, the house stood alone near the water, large and beautiful, but strangely cold. Daniel was waiting at the door. He greeted them with a controlled smile, acting surprised but not fully convincing. Ethan noticed how quickly his eyes scanned the group before settling on Rebecca. Inside the house, everything looked perfect. Clean rooms, expensive furniture, and a peaceful view of the lake. But no one felt comfortable. Rebecca stood in the middle of the living room like she was preparing herself for something painful. Linda stayed slightly behind her, quiet and tense. Ethan remained near the wall, observing everything. Daniel offered drinks, trying to act normal. He spoke about small things, the weather, the drive, anything to delay the real conversation. But Rebecca finally stopped him. Her voice was low but firm. She asked him directly if he was seeing someone else. The question dropped into the room like a stone. Daniel paused for a moment, then sighed. He tried to deny it at first, but his confidence was weaker than before. Rebecca did not move. She just watched him, waiting for truth instead of excuses. Then Linda spoke unexpectedly. Her voice cut through the tension. She told Daniel to stop lying. Everyone turned toward her. The room suddenly felt tighter, like there was no space left for hiding anything. Daniel's expression changed slightly. He looked less controlled now. Rebecca demanded answers again, louder this time. Years of suspicion and silence were finally breaking through her restraint. That was when Linda confessed something no one expected. She admitted that years ago, there had been a moment between her and Daniel. It was brief, she said, and it happened when Rebecca and Daniel were going through a difficult time. She explained it quickly, almost in panic, as if saying it faster could reduce the damage. Rebecca froze. Her face turned pale. She looked at Linda like she was trying to understand something impossible. Daniel stepped back, avoiding both of them. Linda kept talking, her voice shaking. She said it was a mistake, something she regretted deeply. It never happened again, she insisted, but it had stayed with her as guilt all these years. She never told Rebecca because she was afraid of destroying the family. Rebecca could not process it. She turned away, breathing heavily, trying to hold herself together. The betrayal she imagined from Daniel was painful enough, but this added a different kind of wound. It came from someone she trusted completely, her own sister. Ethan stood frozen. He had come expecting to help solve a simple suspicion of cheating. Instead, he was now watching a family collapse under hidden truths. Daniel finally admitted that he had made mistakes in the past, but he tried to defend himself by saying it was over. He said it meant nothing now. But Rebecca did not want explanations anymore. She looked at both Daniel and Linda, realizing her entire marriage and part of her sisterhood had been built on secrets. The argument slowly turned into emotional silence. Rebecca walked away first, unable to stay in the same room. She went upstairs and closed the door behind her. The sound of the door shutting echoed through the house like an ending. Daniel left the room soon after, going outside toward the lake, avoiding everyone. Linda remained behind, sitting on the edge of a chair, staring at the floor. Her hands were shaking, and tears finally came quietly. Ethan sat beside her after a while. He did not say much at first. There was nothing easy to say. Linda whispered that she never meant to hurt Rebecca. She said it happened in a weak moment, when she felt alone and confused, and that she carried guilt ever since. Ethan listened without judging. He could see she was not trying to excuse herself, only trying to explain the weight she had carried for years. She was not just dealing with exposure, she was dealing with years of self-blame. Outside, the lake was still. Inside, everything was broken. Rebecca was upstairs alone with her pain. Daniel was outside avoiding responsibility. Linda was sitting with regret. And Ethan was stuck in the middle of a situation that had gone far beyond what he was asked to fix. Later that evening, Rebecca came down again. Her face looked exhausted. She had made a decision. She said she could not continue living the same life with Daniel. The trust was gone, and she could not rebuild it. Daniel did not argue much. He looked defeated, accepting that things had reached their end. The marriage that once looked perfect was now collapsing quietly, without drama, just sadness. But the emotional damage between the sisters remained unresolved. Rebecca did not forgive Linda, but she also did not explode again. She was too drained for anger. Instead, there was silence between them, a painful distance where closeness used to be. Ethan realized then that the real damage was not only betrayal, but everything left unspoken for years. And now, all of it had surfaced at once, leaving everyone trying to understand how to move forward when nothing felt the same anymore. The night after the truth came out, the house felt empty even though everyone was still inside it. No one spoke much. The air between them was heavy, like every word could cause more damage. Rebecca stayed locked in the upstairs room for hours. Daniel remained outside near the lake, sitting alone in the cold wind. Linda stayed in the living room, staring at nothing, trapped in her own thoughts. Ethan moved quietly through the house, unsure where he belonged in all of this. Morning came slowly. The sunlight over the lake looked peaceful, but it did not match what was happening inside the house. Rebecca came down first. Her face looked tired, but her expression had changed. It was no longer shock. It was decision. She did not sit with anyone. She walked straight to the kitchen, poured water, and stood still for a long time. Daniel entered later. He tried to speak to her, but she raised her hand slightly, stopping him before he could begin. She told him she had heard enough. She said she could not continue in a marriage built on broken trust. Her voice was not loud, but it was final. There was no anger left in it, only exhaustion. Daniel tried to explain again, but this time even he knew it would not change anything. He looked at her for a long moment, then lowered his head. He did not argue further. The silence between them said more than any apology. Linda stayed in the background, watching everything quietly. She looked like someone waiting for punishment that had already arrived. When Rebecca finally looked at her sister, there was pain, but also something softer underneath. Not forgiveness, but a recognition of shared history that could not be erased. Rebecca told Linda that what happened could not be forgotten quickly. She said the betrayal cut too deep. But she also said something unexpected. She said Linda was still her sister, even if things were broken. The words did not fix anything, but they stopped the complete collapse of their bond. Linda broke down quietly after hearing that. She did not argue or defend herself anymore. She simply accepted that she had caused harm that would take a long time to heal, if it ever did. Ethan stood near the window, watching the lake. He realized his role in all of this was not to fix it, but to witness it and help where he could without making things worse. He helped Rebecca pack her belongings. She moved slowly, carefully choosing what to take, as if even small decisions felt heavy now. Daniel packed his things separately. There was no fight over possessions, no shouting. Everything was calm in a painful way. It felt like the end of something that had lasted too long already. Before leaving, Rebecca stood outside the house for a moment. The wind moved through the trees, and the lake reflected the pale morning light. She looked at it like she was saying goodbye not just to a place, but to years of her life. Linda came outside too. She stood a few steps away, not daring to come closer. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The distance between them felt larger than the yard between them. Then Rebecca finally spoke. She said she did not know how long it would take to heal, or if things would ever feel normal again. Her voice was steady, but emotional underneath. Linda nodded slowly, tears forming again, but she did not interrupt. Rebecca added that she could not promise forgiveness right now. That honesty hurt, but it was also real. She said time would decide what happened next, not pressure or guilt. It was not closure, but it was not complete rejection either. Linda accepted that. She said she understood. Her voice was soft, broken, but sincere. She did not ask for more than she deserved at that moment. Ethan watched quietly as Rebecca walked toward the car. Daniel followed a short distance behind, keeping space between them. There was no final argument, no dramatic ending, just separation. Before getting into the car, Rebecca paused and looked back at Linda one last time. There was no smile, but there was something human in her expression, something that still recognized family beneath the pain. Then she got in. Ethan started the engine and drove slowly away from the lake house. The road ahead was long and quiet. No one spoke for a while. Rebecca stared out of the window, lost in thought. Daniel was no longer part of the journey. He had taken another direction earlier, alone. Linda stood by the house as they left, growing smaller in the distance. Ethan glanced once in the mirror and saw her still standing there, motionless, like she was trying to accept the weight of everything that had happened. Inside the car, silence continued. But it was no longer the same silence as before. It was not full of secrets anymore. It was full of endings. Rebecca finally leaned back in her seat and closed her eyes. She looked tired, but a little lighter, like she had made a decision that hurt but was necessary. Ethan kept driving, focusing on the road. He knew nothing would return to how it was before this trip. Trust had been broken, relationships had shifted, And every person involved would carry something from this moment for a long time. Behind them, the lake house disappeared into the trees. Ahead of them, the road stretched forward, uncertain but open. And even though everything felt broken, there was still movement, still life continuing, still time left for whatever healing might come next.